Welcome to Torah Smash, the podcast for nerdy Jews, where our lives of Jewish learning collide with our love of nerd culture. In each episode, we discuss what we lovingly call a Torah Smash, which we have defined as a beautiful collision of one thing from the world of Judaism with another from nerd culture. I am RDY, and joining me today are
Barack Malkin,
Ethan Lane Miller.
Today, we are talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Ooh.
But really, that's not enough. We had discussed doing a variety of movies that had come out this summer and called it a Big Summer Blowout episode. But, but I decided to flip the script a little bit and talk about multiple movies from the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy.
Oh, cool.
Now, as you probably know, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is the final installment in the James Gunn trilogy. And if they stick to their word, the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie we will get in the MCU. They are supposedly going to appear in other Avengers movies. And as we saw in the end credits, spoiler alert, the legendary Star-Lord will return. But they will not have their own movie in the MCU, which is a little sad, but trilogies is definitely the way to do things. Now, there's a theme that runs through this trilogy that is not unique to Judaism, but it is a central concept in Jewish culture and in the Torah. So what would you say is the Jewish theme in Guardians of the Galaxy, not necessarily only Volume 3, though that will be our main focus for today?
I feel like I could give you two answers, but I'm going to go with found family or chosen family.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's it.
Because, I was going to say family too. Yeah.
Hole in one.
Hole in one. Ethan Lane Miller. It's Mishpacha.
Was that too sporty?
I think we can handle it.
We could say it's a mini golf reference, and then I'd be okay.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's like the torpedo into the thermal exhaust port.
Okay. So
what was that reference?
Star Wars.
Yeah, it's
it was a torpedo he shot?
He made it nerdy. He made it.
Yeah.
I thought like a photon.
Proton. Photon is Star Trek.
Okay, I'm so
Proton.
Sorry. Oh, it was a proton torpedo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So many familial relations are described in the Torah narrative, and most of the laws and rules from the Torah that deal with family are actually how not to behave with your family members, especially romantically. But I want to point out the three families that we use in our Amidah prayer every day for those of us who pray daily. There are three different sets of families: Abraham and Sarah, Rebecca and Isaac, and Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah. Now you'll notice I added Bilhah and Zilpah. In traditional Jewish prayer, they only say the men, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In liberal Judaism, which is Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, we have added the Imahot, the mothers, Sarah, Rebecca, and Leah and Rachel. And that's where we used to stop. We started doing that in the 80s, and it really caught on in the 90s, and now it's just common practice. It's written into our prayer books today. But recently, in the communities that I've served, we've started adding Bilhah and Zilpah, recognizing that not every family looks the same, and further recognizing that these two women were the mothers together of 1/4 of the tribes of Israel, and therefore absolutely should be acknowledged as two of our imahot, two of our mothers. So these three families, in different ways, let us know that there is no one way to build a family. Abraham and Sarah are the cis, straight, two-parent family with the father in charge and the mother taking care of things. There's a scene where he says, "Sarah, make the food for the guests," and she does. It's very 1950s family. Rebecca and Isaac are similar in that they're cis, straight parents of children, but I switched their order and listed Rebecca first very intentionally because Rebecca definitely runs that family. Whereas Abraham commands Sarah to make cakes for their guests, Rebecca coaxes Isaac into just about any decision that he makes that is not a repeat of one of his father's decisions. I personally also believe Isaac is neurodivergent, but that's another story for another time. Now, the third family, Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Bilhah, and Zilpah, are a family that reflects more modern models. There are 4 moms and a dad parenting at least 13 children together with all kinds of drama. Yeah. So today we have 2 dads, 2 moms, 1 parent, 3 parents, guardians, steps, grandparents.
Yeah, guardians. Interesting. Guardians.
And there's no one way to be a family. It's very clear. So going from these wildly different types of family that are present in our Torah and the different types of family about which you are aware, what types of family do the 2 of you see in Guardians of the Galaxy? And you don't have to just stick to the 3rd movie, though that is the one I've seen most recently.
So I need to out myself. I haven't seen the 3rd movie yet.
What?
But I know.
Well, the date this episode drops, it'll be on Disney Plus.
I know. I'm very excited. Hashtag summer camp problems.
When the episode comes out and you listen to it, Ethan, you tell us how we did.
Great. I'll tell me how I did too.
Well, you can use the other. You can use the other movies
for sure.
Still.
I planned it that way, thinking maybe you didn't have time.
Yeah, I think to. I mean, obviously he's the central main character, but I think to Peter, I think to Star-Lord, and how he does actually find his dad, and obviously doesn't go great for him. And in volume 2, but he found dad, and he made a choice of what he wanted to do and what he wanted to, of who his family was.
I think in volume 2, the most heartbreaking line in the entire MCU is, "It broke my heart to give your mom that tumor."
Yeah. God, family feels like it could be a loose word. We have Gamora and Nebula as sisters from Thanos as the father. But prior to them meeting, right, Rocket and Groot felt like brothers or siblings, you could say.
Yeah.
And then
sibling relationship,
right? And then I would even venture to say after the blip, the only 2 Guardians that remained were Nebula and Rocket, who both were by chance, maybe by creative writing, the only 2 members of the Guardians who had been sort of rebuilt and put together by others. And so they also shared some sort of a special bond. And so the fact that they spent like 5 years together, right, in that clip in Endgame, when the different people are showing up in the holograms and they're reporting in to Black Widow, Rocket is with Nebula. So they seemingly spent the entire time together and had this shared connection of, their parents tore them apart for their own purposes. And so they had found like an adopted family or sort of situation.
I will say this is not a full-on actually, but I have seen it argued that Star-Lord also has some bits and pieces implanted in him that are not necessarily from his birth, but that might be a bit of a deep cut.
Well, if you want to talk Star-Lord and his parentage, right? So he and Mantis are siblings from the holiday special.
Yeah, I was actually gonna pull in the holiday special too. Like, thinking about family and the Guardians of the Galaxy, like that's like the thing of the holiday special.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin Bacon.
Which everybody's related to, which is a family term. So,
do you know that I can link to Kevin Bacon in 2 moves?
In 2 moves?
Oh, wow.
I was an extra in Pirates of the Silicon Valley with Noah Wyle, who was in A Few Good Men with Kevin Bacon.
Oh, that's very fun. I can get to Kevin Bacon with 1 click on IMDb.
Ooh.
Yeah, and if you want to, like, the Ravengers are their own family.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to. Do you have other ones that you had listed that we haven't talked about? You have a list, whole list.
Yeah. So Peter Quill's original family, his mother and his grandfather, the Ravagers, as you said, the Guardians of the Galaxy themselves are a family. They are a found family, as Ethan first described it. I think if we're focused on volume 3, the animals in the High Evolutionary's cages.
Yeah.
they form a family, especially the four of them, Rocket and Teefs and Floor and Lylla. They form their own little family. And I will say in the Rocket the Raccoon comic books, Lylla was a romantic interest. And in the movie, she was more of a sister.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, they all played more as it felt more like a cellmate friendship than anything else. Like they didn't really go beyond, like, I don't know if it's, the Nebula Rocket situation, right? They've all been torn apart, and so they're commiserating through the bars to each other.
I think prison can be a sort of family, and I think that in this case they played them as very close to each other.
That's true. Yeah,
long time that we saw,
so heartbreaking. Yeah, absolutely.
And she even said 1 3/4 times, "It's so good to have friends."
Yeah, that's why I like lean against the family, because friends was said multiple times. But again, we can interpret the word family to mean a bunch of different things. So
yeah, I was about to push how we define friends and family.
Yeah, and I think family definitely has a wide net.
Yeah.
So at the end of the movie, Grandpa has obviously built a new family. He has a new wife, and they refer to her kid, who could be a grandkid, but either way, there's someone else living in the house. And on
probably the grandparent makes a cameo appearance in Volume 2.
Yes.
In the car driving away. So whoever's in the car with him, I'm assuming, is a family member.
Yeah, I remember the car scene. I don't remember if it's a different person than the woman who answered the door. And on the wall of that house, they had a cross-stitch picture that said "Everything grows with love."
No.
I think that if the Guardians of the Galaxy can be considered a family, then so can the guards in the world that they break into, led by Nathan Fillion.
Oh, Orgo Corp?
The Orgo Corp can definitely be considered a family, especially since I feel like if we were watching the movie from their perspective, like if it was called Orgo Corp Volume 3, then we would definitely, it would be the same kind of a movie where we would be empathizing with Nathan Fillion's character, and the guy who he was making fun of would be Drax.
Sure, I can see that. Work family, The Office, as told by Orgo Corp.
Yeah. And here's a little bit of a deep cut. James Gunn puts his family in all the movies.
All of them. Yeah, his wife, his brother. Yeah.
Sean Gunn has a big role in this one in Volume 2.
Well, he's also the motion capture for Rocket. So not only does he play Kraglin, but he also plays the motion capture for Rocket.
Right on. I did not know that.
Oh, that's
really
cool.
Yeah.
And his mom and dad were in Volume 2, and his dad died in between the two. So Volume 3 was dedicated to his dad.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Talk about family.
Yeah. So James Gunn also puts a bunch of actors that have been in his other movies, which I'm sure form their own little families as they film with him and with each other.
Yeah, he's got people in this movie and extra pieces from Peacemaker, from the Suicide Squad.
Ratmaker too.
Yeah. So if he's worked with them in other properties and really enjoys their acting, he'll continue with them. He's one of those directors.
Yeah. Barack. Like, it's interesting. There are those directors who not fall back on, but like to utilize the same actors repeatedly, regardless of what the project is.
Adam Sandler does it. A lot of people do. A good Jewish guy, Adam Sandler. So I want one of the things that serves as a contrast to family for me is the High Evolutionary himself.
Yeah.
The High Evolutionary is obsessed with perfection. And one of the things that I noticed in my second watch through of the movie is at the beginning of the movie, one of the things you see is his hand slowly creeping towards baby Rocket. And his hands are so beautifully manicured. And there's another scene where they close in on his hand, and he's holding up the finger like, "Wait 1 minute for me, please." And he makes Star-Lord wait an interminable amount of time. And again, like, his hands are beautiful. Like, they're so perfectly manicured.
I don't know. How is this the thing that you focused on in that scene?
It wasn't what I focused on, but it drew my attention. But
Brock, is that not what got your attention in those scenes?
No, it was more his pedicure that I was attracted to.
You're a feet guy.
Oh God! Why can't you just let me leave audio in?
The reason I noticed it is because when someone gets a manicure, they are focused on a very small detail on their body. And a subtle manicure, I'm not talking about the people who get like the big, 6-inch multicolored neon claws, but the nice, neat, short manicured hands where there's no jagged cuticle, there's no jagged nail, everything on there is nice and smooth and round. That to me shows a level of attention to detail that regular people don't always do.
You don't think people with families get nice manicures?
I'm not saying that people with families don't get nice manicures. My wife has beautiful nails. She's the five of us who typically gets manicures, and she ruins them right away because she plays guitar. But what I'm saying is that that attention to perfection and that need to be perfect, that is antithetical to family, because family is messy. It's messy. It's chaotic. We yell at each other. We scold each other. We get really angry. We have all the jagged edges, and we love each other anyway.
And you accept their flaws, which the High Evolutionary does not.
The High Evolutionary wants to fix their flaws. And if you've ever tried to fix a flaw of one of your family members, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
Typically goes really well.
I even have these wonderful moments with my son lately because it's really only the four of us here in Chicago because we haven't built our own community outside of our nuclear family of 4 out of 5 of us. And we have these moments where he'll say to me, why did you let mom do X, Y, or Z? And I'll say, you know what? Because I've learned not to worry about it. It's not that important. But she said, I know what she said.
Yeah.
But it's right.
I think that's a strong piece of family and I don't know what Judaism says about it in regards to patience and understanding and that flexibility of change of, I think that your family helps to make you a better person if you can listen and have those conversations, right? The High Evolutionary, if there was a flaw, he destroyed the old project and moved on to the next project. Flaws were not acceptable, and so he couldn't do that. But with the Guardians throughout the movie, right? Then is the second one? Yeah, I think it was the second one where they're drunk in a bar and one of the people calls out Rocket as I think
it's the first one.
You think it was the first one where he calls out Rocket and he's like, he called me he called him something else.
Fox, he gets called
all the animals, but he had called something, not experiment or trash or something like a mistake. And Peter Quill comes in and de-escalates, and they talk about it and help him understand that that's not how they view him, because his creation was, if you have a mistake, then you are not loved. And he thought he was finding family, and then he thought he was unloved, and they helped him understand, no, that's okay. None of us are whole. We all have mistakes. Another family thing from the third one is where Drax ends up, where he started in the comics. But they did not have in the series, is that he becomes a dad by the end of the third movie in some sense.
He takes care of the little ones.
Yeah, and so
speaking of the little ones, the blonde who at the end of the movie has different colored eyes.
Yeah.
You know who she is, yeah?
No.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
Go ahead. Okay.
Oh, no.
No. I want you to let our listeners know. Somebody with two different colored eyes. What was her name?
Her full name. So in the movie, she's referred to as Phyla, but her full name is Phyla Vel.
Oh, like Marvel?
Is in daughter of Marvel.
Oh, that's fun. So another young. Is Phyla an Avenger, a young Avenger, in any sense?
She's one of the new Guardians.
Okay.
It's Quasar.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't catch that.
Phyla Vel is Quasar.
That's fun.
Just not as powerful in this movie because she doesn't have the bands yet, the quantum bands. So she'll apparently get those at some point, and probably
if the MCU decides that that's how she gets her powers and not some other thing.
Well, if this is tangent, but it sure feels like we're building towards the Young Avengers.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
Another type of family from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was Adam Warlock and his mother Aisha, who
Mother, I guess like caregiver.
he referred to her as mother.
Yeah.
That's true.
I now having not seen it, I still buy the mother connection there.
Yeah.
And then losing her and that anger he felt after losing her, I think paralleled Star-Lord when Peter Quill lost his mother in the beginning of the first movie.
Yeah.
So all of this family, all of these different types of family, we really are building around this idea of what it means to find family. When interviewed about this movie, James Gunn admitted that he never saw Star-Lord as the main character of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. He always viewed it as Rocket.
Oh, that's interesting.
And this movie really takes the Rocket perspective. At the beginning of the movie, after the flashbacks, when Rocket kind of walks through and you see all of the Guardians doing their thing, all from Rocket's perspective, listening to the music that Rocket chose on Peter's Zune, which Peter gets mad about. But all of this is from Rocket's perspective, which is as if to say the movie is from Rocket's perspective.
Oh, yeah. This movie is 100% from Rocket's perspective. I was going to challenge and say that the Guardians properties, while they have a main viewpoint of either Peter Quill or Rocket in this one, it feels like an ensemble piece for me, way more than a single character's property, because we get to dive, except for maybe Groot within all of them, Gamora, Nebula, Peter, Rocket, like we get a lot more of who they are in each of the films. And maybe we would if we understood Groot throughout the entirety of the trilogy.
He does say "I love you guys" at the end of this.
Right, but that's really I think James Gunn said this too. That is to say that we now understand him because we have become the family with the Guardians. And
I did not hear him say that, but that is exactly how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
In that when you start to be family, is when you understand each other.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when they all start understanding Groot, which is why at the end of this movie, Groot comes up behind Gamora and says, "I am Groot." And she says, "Yeah, I know." And then she kind of like stuns herself that she understands him.
Yeah.
That's God, that's so great.
And
also
it's a good ending, Ethan. I'm sorry that.
Well, no. I want to be clear. Like, yes, that's great. I'm really talking about RDY's interpretation. Like, this is great. I really love this, and it's really. I mean, yeah, me, not a filmmaker. It's really hard to do an ensemble and give every character their due.
It's one of the reasons why I really struggle reading X-Men comics. It's just so much dialogue on every page because everybody has to talk, but there's just dozens on a panel. And I really have to push through the X-Men comics when I read them for that same reason. But he did a nice job giving each person their space to grow.
And in the action of the movie, it happens too. There are two main action sequences. One of them is in a hallway, which I think is the second best hallway scene in the MCU, second only to the one from the Daredevil TV show. And that was a good one. So this hallway fight scene, they're each fighting on their own together.
Yeah. But
it's not like, one of the things they say in the movie 300 is that what makes Sparta so strong is that they fight as one. They put up a phalanx and they shield each other. But in this, they're all over the hallway, and yet they're still fighting as one. Because like Gamora throws someone into Groot's extended branch, and Quill shoots a hole in someone that was about to attack someone else, and Quill plants all of these tasers on guys, and he activates them as soon as they're about to attack Gamora. So it's this incredible teamwork scene in the hallway. And then the other cool
that was beautifully choreographed.
So beautifully choreographed.
Really nice.
And the other cool fight scene was at the end when they're fighting the High Evolutionary, and it is one hit by each of the Guardians and the kill shot by Gamora, and that's it.
Yeah. I not that I'm going to push back a little bit, but we're a bit into the episode, and my wife is going to hate it so far because it's mostly nerd content and seemingly little Jewish stuff. So I'm going to swing us back to the Judaism.
Yeah.
Are there like I'm trying to think of like partnering texts that mirror the Guardian situations, and the only one I can maybe come up with is the like Abraham sacrificing Isaac or going to mirroring the volume 2 with Ego trying to sacrifice. Granted, it's a very different purpose, but Ego sacrificing Peter Quill in order to become the full planet.
For sure. That makes Ego the bad guy, and yet he's this big, powerful planet. And I would also argue that the Akedah, the scene of the binding of Isaac, makes Abraham the bad guy, and he's this big, powerful, big deal. I really don't like the Akedah personally, and I think there's a lot to it.
Yeah, we talked about it in one of our other episodes.
So not to unpack it, go back and listen to that episode. But I think the entire Joseph narrative has a lot to do with the family and found family and getting, he gets kicked out by family.
Right.
His mother and father.
And then returns to them at the end. Oh, yeah. Peter Quill's on a Joseph journey.
And he embraces them at the end. So Joseph has the lost family with his brothers who beat him up and sell him to the travelers. And they sell him to Potiphar, and he gets into the family enough that he's promoted to head of the household. And then he gets...
that's a Ravagers thing. That's the Ravagers take him and become part of the family. And then they pass him along to his actual family, which is the Guardians.
And it goes further with Joseph. So he goes to jail. Yeah. And he makes a family with his prisoners.
Which is what Peter Quill did in Volume 1.
Right.
And my gosh.
Rocket did in Volume 3. So he makes family. And then he gets out of jail and he becomes family to Egypt. He becomes second in command of Egypt. So
that's great, RDY.
Parallel. And Joseph comes from that family that I mentioned with 4 mothers and 1 father.
Very nice.
And I would say Moses is the same, where he gets taken care of by 2 families. He gets taken care of by his biological mother, who serves as his nursemaid. Mm-hmm. And he gets taken care of by Pharaoh's daughter, who serves as his adoptive mother. So Moses becomes part of 2 families, and therefore he is the perfect person for God to tap and say, you have the knowledge of the Egyptian family and the connection to the Israelite family. You're the only person who could approach Pharaoh and say, let my people go. But God waits for Moses to be mature enough. God waits until Moses stops to wonder at the burning bush. We don't know how many times God has placed a burning bush in Moses's path.
Right.
We only know of the time that he turns aside to look.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I'm eating this up. This is great.
So, I mean, pick your biblical character. There's family involved.
Right.
King David has a family of soldiers and wives. And in a lot of Midrashim, he's this warrior king who's out there with the soldiers and being involved in the daily lives of everyone in the upper echelon of his kingdom.
You haven't sold me on these other ones, but that Joseph parallel I love most, and I'm trying to decide in my head if Peter Quill fits it better or if Rocket fits it better.
I don't think it has to be one or the other.
Okay. 2 Joseph stories, totally fine.
And Peter
Quill, know what? Actually, both Gamora fits this storyline, taken from her people by Thanos and sort of held there, and he became her family, and then she found the Guardians after. Yeah. Oh, who else fits this? I'm sure that, well, we don't know where Groot, he's a Flora Colossus.
Yeah, Groot was banished from his planet.
So banished, found Rocket. Rocket became his second family, and then they found the Guardians in prison, which became the next family. Yeah.
Presumably on a place called Half-World, where Rocket spent some time on Half-World, and Groot and Rocket met on Half-World and eventually made their way to Xandar, where they ran into Gamora and Peter Quill.
Awesome. The Josephs of the Galaxy.
The Josephs of the Galaxy. That's your episode title.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, actually, I think that's pretty good.
Do they have like fun coats? I guess they don't have fun coats. They
Well, actually.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So their outfits in the third,
super colorful.
yeah. Well, the spacesuits, yes, were super colorful.
Yeah.
And there was this whole internet thing about them being based on Among Us, but
yeah.
James Gunn has said emphatically no. He designed them after the spacesuits in 2001.
A Space Odyssey.
Uh-huh. And although there are 5 and not 6 of them, they're each a color of an infinity stone. By the way, the scene where they land and Star-Lord is pouring his heart out to Gamora because she's wearing a blue suit and he pushed the blue button, but the blue button is
That's
really
everybody. It's obviously for everybody.
And then Mantis and Drax argue over whether yellow is to yellow and red is to green, or whether yellow is. And he goes, "We'll try it." And she goes, "Hello." Peter Quill is like, "Oh my God, ow!" And she goes, "Oh, you're right." It's one of those moments that it's so silly. I love this movie for that. Like, there are so many of those moments where they look right at the audience and they say, "Hold on a second, we're gonna break from the plot to just do something silly and fun. We'll be right back." And so,
but isn't that what family is, though?
Oh, well done.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I heard something yesterday in terms of family, of when you, and I think they live this pretty well within the Guardians, that if you are struggling with your child who's you're having a rough time, they're having a hard day, and you're having a hard time, working them through their emotions. Imagine that you're 80 and you've been able to travel back in time to this moment. How would you want to spend that time with your child? Would it be yelling, or would it be having a conversation and helping them through what they're dealing with? And I think that's what you're talking about, of the allowing these extra moments to happen, whether by chance or by accident, whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. I have 3 children. And I have a short fuse. And it's something that I've been working on my whole life. I hang out a lot with a friend who always tells me I'm patient, and I think it's hysterical. And I feel like with the 2 that are living with us now, I am using the lesson that I learned from our eldest and trying to not yell as quickly as I used to. And I really wish I could go back to when they were younger and relearn that lesson before I yelled at them, because I think our relationship would be very different. And they know I'm proud of them and that I love them and would do anything for them. But if something's going on, they go to mom because she didn't yell.
Yeah, and I think the Guardians learned this lesson a little bit, because in the first one, there's a lot of like yelling conversations. And I think people will say, "Oh, well, yeah, but families yell." And I would challenge to say, like, yeah, my family growing up yelled and I hated it. And so we try very hard not to do that. And so our family does not yell like that at each other having a conversation. We have a conversation. And by the time they get right, the first one had it, the second one had it. This third one, when people disagree, there's not like an angry yelling at each other. It's more of a conversation, emotional discussion, as opposed to a yelling match of who's right, who's wrong. Unless it's some sort of battle and you have to scream over the photons or protons or whatever the MCU uses. Yeah.
But again, that's family. We learn lessons from our mistakes. And I would say the reverse is true, that younger generations can teach us. I often talk about how when Natalie and I were first married, and my dad was having a conversation with the 2 of us, and he kept interjecting a Yiddish slur. And she finally said, "You really have to stop using that word. I don't like it." And he fought back a little bit. And then he was like, "Okay, I won't use it." And he stopped using it in front of her, and he eventually stopped using it in front of me. So I think that it's possible for younger generations to teach older generations, no matter how old they are. I know for a fact my children teach me on a daily basis, and I would bet dollars to donuts that yours do too, Barack. And
yeah,
and I would bet that your campers do too, Ethan, that you learn from them as your family.
Oh, without question. I mean, I default back to my nifty regional director time period. I loved that. I learned just as much from them as I was teaching them.
I I would say, right, so we can say that family grows based on the people around them, right? And so here's a deep cut theory, is that we know that Peter is a child of a Celestial. We know that Mantis is also a child of a Celestial.
Right.
We noticed that Groot is Swole Groot in this one, and perhaps the powers from within spending so much time around Peter and Mantis actually made Groot grow a little bit larger in size as opposed to his tall, thin structure from the first one because he wasn't around celestial powers.
I was thinking of Groot as not the same Groot from Volume 1.
Right, he's like a child of that one. Right, but that child grew differently because of the people around him.
I was also thinking like in the first movie, the Groot was the equivalent of like a 40, 50-year-old. And in the second movie, Groot's the equivalent of a teenager. Yeah. And in this movie, Groot is the equivalent of like someone in their 20s who's like at their physical best.
Yeah.
And then gets even better and becomes that, third evolution Pokemon Groot.
Right. I love the hidden guns purpose for Groot in this one. That was a wonderful surprise. Sorry, Ethan.
I don't think I fully understood that, so
good.
We're fine.
Good.
There were a lot of great Groot moments. The moment when he goes onto the planet and kind of grows to be a scary creature and he waggles what looks like a tongue.
Yeah.
If you pause and look closely, it's a piece of bark.
Oh, that's very fun.
Yeah. Now, what's really funny, listeners, is he could have just made that entire thing up. And Barack just ended him, and I'm gonna watch the movie, and I'm not gonna know until I finish the movie.
That's a fun.
I might have just been pranked.
Our whole role in this is just to pull the bark over your eyes.
Right. Mm-hmm. Was there anything interesting, RDY? Not Ethan, because you haven't seen it. From the movie that you pulled, any afikomen you saw?
There were a few. The one that I loved the most was in the beginning of the movie, Rocket goes into a milk refrigerator, and all of the language on Nowhere is in Cree.
Yeah.
So you can find Cree to English translations.
Yeah.
Or you can just say, what did this say?
Mm-hmm.
And the milk carton that he drinks from is that brand of milk from that bovine character. I forget her name right now.
Oh, the one who took care of Quicksilver and Wanda Maximoff?
Yes. So it's and the one that was teased in WandaVision.
Right. Well, part of me wonders if that bovine was one of the High Evolutionary's creations.
In the comics, she was. She was the first.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Bova. I think her name was Bova.
See, and I had bovine in my head.
Yeah.
So in the comics, Adam Warlock was created by the Enclave.
Yeah.
Who made him to fight other superheroes. And then the comic books, he rebels and goes off on his own to discover morality, which I think kind of happened all in this one movie where he discovered morality. But a really cool thing about Adam Warlock that I absolutely am hopeful for is Adam Warlock's first appearance in the Marvel Comics is in one of my favorite titles, Fantastic Four. So if you want to talk about family, we can come back to a Fantastic Four episode in the future.
Yeah.
Because it's really a family title. But Adam Warlock could be an entree into a Fantastic Four movie, which I would absolutely love. I love the actor they chose for this. I first saw this actor on Black Mirror, I think. And he pops up from time to time, and he's just always really, really good. Other families in the Marvel Universe are also represented in subtle ways here. Krugar. Krugar is the red lizard-looking dude with no mouth.
Oh, the one of the Guardian groups?
One of the Ravagers.
Yeah, one of the Ravagers. Okay.
And Krugar makes portals for the Ravagers to all come onto the ship.
Right, like Doctor Strange.
Exactly, because Krugar was trained on Kamartaj.
Oh, that's fun.
Kamartaj is a family.
This is a stretch. We know that Rocket, for whatever reason, his procedure was more successful than any other experiment the High Evolutionary did. So
define more successful.
He became better than the experiment. He was supposed to become a thinking, functioning member of society, and he was smarter than the High Evolutionary, which he couldn't stand. But the fact that he's the only one of all the experiments who changed in that way, I'm wondering if perhaps he has, we can say, a mutation that allowed him to succeed in that some more. So I don't know if that could be a reason why. It's not the reason in the comics at all. And so
But I don't think it matters, because one of the things that makes Rocket special, I don't know that it's necessarily straight intelligence, but it's creativity
that none of the others showed.
Right.
Yeah.
And even the High Evolutionary kind of screams that, oh, they can reprogram the blah, blah, blah in 2 minutes. But so what? That's just rote memorization. He can figure it out.
Yeah.
And like when he makes the key card to get to open their cages,
Yeah.
he's been figuring it out slowly, because he pulls 2 pieces out of his pocket and he puts them together. And then he picks up another piece that's buried in the cage, and another and another and another. And so all of these pieces that he's got buried all over the cage come together to make the key card, because this has been a project he's been working on for X amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then in line with that of his friends in the cages and always having them sort of in his mind, Lylla's experiment was mostly arms, Teefs was his eyes, and Floor was their feet, legs. In each of the Guardians movies, those are the objects that Rocket asks for. I'm going to need that guy's leg. Give me that guy's eye. You got me Winter Soldier's arm. Like, I wanted the arm. Each one of them has been one of his friends, and he wants it as a way to remember, perhaps. And
oh, I love that. And you know what? We all do that. We have tokens of our family, even if it's nothing but a black ribbon that we wear on the outside for a week from people we've lost.
Right.
We have things from our family that we want to keep with us all the time.
He carried the key card with him the entire time too. The same one that he used to open at the end was the same one he used to escape.
Exactly. And they kind of flash it in the beginning of the movie, and he puts it in his pocket.
Yeah.
This is very interesting to listen to. I'm not being facetious. Like, it really is.
I have 2 more fun ones. 2 more fun afikomen in this movie. When the High Evolutionary is sitting with Rocket, you know, his favorite child at one point, and looking out, he says, "Do you like this music?" That music is from over like 5,000 years ago. I don't know if the High Evolutionary is that old. He does have a lot of like good technology pieces. So is it possible that the High Evolutionary at some point overlapped and met with Kang, who shared with him some stuff? Yeah.
That's where I hope you're going. Yes, absolutely.
Or he's a lover. Right? There are people today that listen to music from earlier, and so that could very well be possible.
To recreate, yeah. But if we're saying that this movie is set in Earth time 2020s,
right?
Then he does not say it comes from Earth.
No, he does not. Yeah.
And in the movie, he says he visited your planet. So talking to Peter, so he says he visited Earth, but in the comic books, he is an Earthling. So you know, little leeway there.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to what you said about the Winter Soldier's arm.
Yeah.
Rocket clearly gave Gamora her upgrades.
Yes, agreed. Arm. Yeah. As a thank you.
Probably as a thank you for yeah.
Which as Jews, I don't like. I know Christmas is, you're not supposed to say, you gave me this, so I'm going to give you that. That was a Christmas gift. He didn't have to give her something in return.
Right.
So that was also really nice of him, because if somebody who wants things for himself all the time and creating his own machinery, I don't know if there's another situation aside from like rebuilding the ship for his purposes that he's gifted somebody else. But again, he spent 5 years with Nebula during the blip. So he has a much stronger relationship with her.
For sure. And I would also say that if Rocket had access to vibranium, he could make his own arm. Very easily.
Do you think, this hasn't been discussed. Do you think he used the Winter Soldier's arm to make Nebula's arm?
That's a good question.
It's nanotech. It's definitely nanotech. So a mixture of Tony Stark stuff that maybe Nebula learned when she spent time with Tony with the arm that she brought him. That's a good bet. I would bet that.
I would say that since Rocket has had exposure to Stark tech as well as Wakanda tech, he's probably really stepped up his game.
Yeah, agreed. The last afikomen I have is that when they were in OrgoCorp, that living organic building, and they like cut the tubes, you can see that everything is like yellow colored, right? In the other movies, the Celestials heads and like it looks like the spinal fluid, right? In the first movie, Drax gets thrown into that fountain puddle that's made of that yellow liquid. There's another scene in the second one when they're on the Celestial's head
and they're mining it.
Yeah. So I think that OrgoCorp as a living thing could be pieces of a Celestial that have been kept alive by the High Evolutionary as his base. I don't know which, and I don't know if that's going to come into play at some point of like a revenge matter against the High Evolutionary or not. But because do we know this? That he's alive? We all know this? Ethan, do you know this?
Oh, for sure.
In the background, you can see Drax carrying the High Evolutionary when they're all escaping his place.
Right. And
they'll come back at some point.
Didn't kill Adam Warlock. They did when they had the choice. They didn't kill. Although Gamora did, I would call that a kill shot. But
yeah.
But
who knows what upgrades he has?
In the book world and in the movie world, if you don't see a dead body, they're not dead.
Yeah. No, but I saw a live body. He was carried by Drax into nowhere.
We don't know if he was dead or alive when he was being carried. Although, what reason would he?
Why would you have to carry the body? Yeah.
Okay. My mother used to say all the time that there are two kinds of family. There's family related to you by blood, and family related to you by love.
I really hope you're going where I hope you're going. Go ahead.
As Jews, we build all kinds of family together. We have our nuclear family, our extended family, our groups of friends who feel like family, our synagogue family, and our various community families. I personally am blessed to be a part of many different types of families. So I want to give a shout out to my wife, Natalie, and our children, Gabriel, Alex, and Bella, who made me a dad and not a destroyer. And I want to give the two of you the opportunity to shout out your families.
Sure. My beautiful wife, Michelle, and my lovely children who are 2 and 4.
My parents, my 2 sisters who are just 2 of the most incredible people in the world, and my brother-in-law who met us and still decided to marry into the family.
I also want to thank the 2 of you for being my podcasting family. And I want to thank our listeners who make us feel like a small family in a great big world of podcasting, especially when you comment on our social media posts and send us emails.
We love that.
We do love that. And it is truly through our different types of family that we find our own guardians in this galaxy of ours.
Very nice. I thought you were going to say there are 2 types of families, those that dance and those that do not.
Oh, that's good. We dance.
Yeah. For those for Susan, that was a line that Drax had said in the first movie when Peter was trying to get with Gamora. He's like, well, there's 2 types of people, those that dance and those that don't. So I think
it has a wonderful end to this. I'm not going to say what it is, mostly for Ethan's sake. But
I'll take my headphones off.
The moment at the end where Drax burst into dancing, I think that's
as somebody who wasn't a dancer.
Yeah.
That was a great moment.
And Ethan's back.
What'd they say about me?
Only wonderful things.
Good.
Thank you.
That was super fun. I really enjoyed it. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Torah Smash. Our fiscal sponsor is Jewish Creativity International. Our theme music was created by Sean Fogel. You can check out Sean's bands and studio work at www.thesleepywest.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate and review us wherever you listen. It helps others find us and is an excellent way to support the podcast. We want to hear from you and continue today's nerdy discussion. Go to torahsmash.com to find where to connect with us online, purchase swag from our store, support us with a donation, find previous episodes, and more. And today I'm going to let one of the wisest and funniest Guardians I know close us out.
I am Groot.
that was good.
Oh my God.
Oh, Groot.
Oh, sorry, RDY's in another castle.
This
This is all going to be cut.
I'm
It's
cutting
all
this.
going to be
Yeah.
cut.
Don't
Great.
worry.
Oh, dude, this is a family podcast.
Yeah, watch your language, buddy.